Hello, I'm Nicole.
And I'm Misha.
And we're Ritual Común.
Listen for my how.
So today we are talking about something very fun. I call it the wild thing. So the concept of the wild thing is essentially this inner sense of sort of restlessness, an inner sense of not wanting to deal with your blocks, like Nicole had said before. Not wanting to deal with your blocks, like Nicole had said to me before. And it's an idea that happens a lot with some of us, and you actually experience the wild thing in many different forms. So for me, the wild thing comes out in a very aggressive, kind of a violent way, where, for example, if I'm in a situation where something really doesn't suit me, or somebody has really wronged me, this wild thing takes over me, and I immediately go into a place of having a thought or a feeling that I want to react really violently or really aggressively. And I have to then ask myself, whoa, where did that come from? And where am I going to go with that? If probably arrested if I do what those thoughts are telling me. So I think that with everybody has a different wild thing, and Nicole actually has a very opposite wild thing than I do.
Yeah, I mean, it comes out, but for me, the way that I conceptualize it in my head is that the wild thing comes up when you've been ignoring a block in your life for a while. Like, you've really just like shunned it in the corner, and it's that crying, screaming baby telling you, like, you need to deal with me now.
Mm-hmm.
And so it just pops up, and it can be, yes, like something triggered you, like, somebody did you wrong, and it comes out. But if there's been like a pattern that has made you feel like a victim in your life and you haven't paid attention to it, then the wild thing comes up, because it's like, you gotta get this straight, because I'm not soothed. And a lot of it comes from like inner child sort of traumas or work that we might have to do. But for me, like, the only times that I can really identify that is when somebody that I really care about has been put down, or I in my heart and my like values and ethics know that something is really wrong, then that comes out. And the only time, like, the clearest picture that I have is that one of my sister's ex-boyfriend, like years ago, we're in the car, and he said something that to me was just completely out of line. He called her stupid, and that might not seem like a big deal, but in my family, we don't use that kind of language. I love my sister so much, and she's the furthest from stupid.
She's a doctor.
So
she's
like
so intelligent.
Yeah, and I already didn't like him, and I was not dealing with that. I had not voiced that I did not like this person. He rubbed me the wrong way all the time. And so when he said this, it's like I just like turned around in like blindness, and I was like, who do you think you're? Like, I just went off on him. Nothing like physically aggressive, but sometimes words can be more hurtful than being physically aggressive. And I just like put that person down hard, like really hard. And that was probably not what that situation needed, because what that caused it was that he started to be aggressive with me, and that put my sister in sister bear mode, and I caused conflict between them, which was in my view it was needed, but but for me, a lot of the times, I'm a lot more passive. I don't react very strongly when things happen. I'm just kind of like, let it be. It's not your business. It's something that person's dealing with. But I also have goals in my life that warn me to be really assertive. And so when these things come out, the wild thing comes out of me, I actually feel really proud of myself, that I know that, okay, there's the warrior. Like, that's the person that I have inside. I do have fire. I'm not gonna just let people walk all over me. When the situation arises, I'll show up. So I kind of try to have a healthier relationship with it. But like Misha said, it can be really different from both of us. She might be a lot more outwardly aggressive, whereas me, I'm a lot more passive aggressive, but I might not voice it as often.
Yeah, and the wild thing is a really nice sort of metaphor or personification of these emotions that get evoked in you. And I think that often when you have a healthy relationship with the wild thing, and when I mean healthy relationship, I'm talking directly speaking to this aspect of yourself that is invoking so much, whether it be avoidance or what is it like, evadance, right? When you want to run, you just don't want to deal with things, or aggression and violence, or some kind of like sort of very powerful aggression.
The fight, or fleece.
Right.
Fleece.
The
Fight,
flight,
or freeze.
Oh yeah, but that's a really, really important thing for you to consider for yourself. What does your wild thing look like when it shows up in your, well, hopefully not every day. And that's another aspect. Is that if it is showing up on a weekly basis or more often than you want it to, that means you're really ignoring something that's trying to tell you, hey, listen to me, help me, assert me, give me some kind of peace of mind. And
it's probably seeping in all areas of your life.
And one of those aspects of understanding that energetically is imagining that that's your inner monster. It's your inner wild thing, right? Your inner comes out. Whether that be for warranted or unwarranted reason, doesn't matter. It's there because it's not been heard or fed. And energetically, you're like feeding it, right? Whatever action you put out. And so the bigger the action, the more you feed it. But also, the more repercussion you're going to deal with having a monster some kind of crazy thing happens. So you have to really ask yourself, when you're feeling these types of when you're feeding this type of energy, okay, what is going to serve me but also serve it? And so you have to kind of start to ration with yourself. And I have open conversations with my wild thing. And like Nicole was saying, it's not like we don't all talk to ourselves in the shower sometimes when we're pretending to fight with someone or like have this discussion.
Yeah. There's healthy ways of getting all of this out. You can journal about it. I know Misha's a big fan of journaling. If I need to get it out, I can draw it. What I think is really fun to do, especially if it's somebody that you wish you had said something to and then you're like seething inside, it's really fun to write an email to them, like as if you were going to send it, and then just keep it in your drafts. And then you can come back to it like 3 months later or like 6 months later, and then you can see how far you've come. Like, oh, I don't feel those things anymore. Like, I'm good.
Or you're like, oh, it's still really there. And I still feel these exact same things. I need to deal with this now. Yeah. And one of those things that I do in terms of if I'm arguing with my wild thing. So my wild thing is pretty extreme. And that's kind of the difference between Nicole and I. It's like, her wild thing would be like, yes, write an email. And my wild thing would be like, throw an egg at the wall. Ah! And so I had to take my wild thing in the chunks of understanding how to ration with it in a very calm way. And that's really hard sometimes because, right, some of us who have a lot of fiery energy, we want to attack things. We want to let it out. But also, if you don't have enough fire energy, or if you're like in a place where maybe sometimes it takes a lot to like get that way, and it takes a lot of energy out of you to get that way. You have to find a balance for yourself of how you're going to speak to this thing and say, okay, you're asking me to do this, but in fact, like, it's probably going to hurt me in the long run. So instead, can I give you this?
Yeah. And you see another place where I really resonate with this is in workplaces. Times where I've been like a manager or something, the people who were above me, usually men, always saw me in a certain way, and they always had directions to give, because that's what managers do and supervisors do. And sometimes their feedback was helpful and other times it wasn't. And I had to learn really quickly that if I wasn't speaking out about it, if I was just like, yes, and then like, okay, forget it, I'm not doing anything that you said, I would then have to deal with justifying myself when I had already agreed to it. Even though in my heart, I had never agreed to it, I just verbally said it. So I had to learn pretty quickly how to assert myself. And I think that's a really great lesson that we can take from the wild thing, is that it's lessons in being effectively assertive, not aggressive, not passive and meek, but being somebody who can say, this is who I am. Like, I hear what you're saying, but I don't think it's true. And I'm also not going to do it. And that can be a further conversation. But a lot of the times, especially if it's a personal relationship, no is a sentence in itself. So you just being able to say like, no, might be enough. And a lot of the times, especially as women, we don't give ourselves that permission. We always strive to be agreeable and like peacemakers and wanting everybody to be like happy and fun. And so we don't get we don't get taught.
And we don't get
do that.
validated for saying no often
Yeah.
as well. So it's really important for us to listen to that inner wild thing, that thing that's screaming out, being like, stop saying no to me. Stop saying, shh, I'm here in your face and I'm giving you these really intense feelings. And giving the wild thing a name, a face, even a texture, being able to identify that it is now appearing in your space and being able to communicate with it. It's really going to start to help soothe and start to heal those things that you've been ignoring.
Yeah, and it can be a wonderful thing, I think, if you begin to have a really healthy relationship with your wild thing. I find a lot of the times the things that make me really angry or very passionate are things that are out of my control. It'll be societal things or political things where it's maddening because I could scream about it and I could go off angry with Misha, but we don't have that power. But it could give us the drive to talk about it with other people, to try to live a way that we can fight against these things that bother me, instead of just being angry all the time and slashing people's tires.
Yeah. Identify yours, give it a name, give it a face, give it a personality, and really start to be present with it and like allow it to kind of show up when it needs to. And really like become your inner wild thing's best friend. It's really important for you because one, it'll start to not be so wild. And secondly, when it does show up, you'll really understand why it's there and what it needs to do for you. And you can really kind of say, okay, that thought that you just gave me last time you were around, you gave me a 10 of intensity. Like I said, I might get arrested. This time that you showed up, you gave me like a 5, and I'm okay. I'm willing to do that.
And it makes it easier for you to integrate into your life. Nothing that we experience is useless. We don't want to get rid of our anger. We don't want to get rid of us trying to be nice to others, right? It's just finding the right balance, so that you can start to have a better sense of self, and that you can show up as that self with others.
Okay, so we hope you like this video, the inner wild thing. And we hope that you give it a big thumbs up and or scroll away. Please comment in the comment box below. Do you have a name for your wild thing? What do you do with it? What times has it come out? Give us some of your craziest scenarios or some of your best ones, whatever does come to you. It's going to be really fun to talk about it all together in the comments. And we look forward to seeing you again.
Bye. If you like what you hear and you want to keep the conversation going, listen to our podcast, Ritual Común Contigo.
Also check out our Instagram where we have affirmation, oracle cards, and give a special message just for you.
Make sure to check out our website,
ritualcomún.com.
Inhala,
Exhala. Inhala, exhala.